Forget everything you thought you knew about snowmobiles. Most people picture quiet winter trails, frozen lakes, and peaceful rides through fresh powder. But hidden deep inside automotive history lies a completely different story. One filled with machines so outrageous, so dangerous, and so mechanically insane that they almost seem fictional. Imagine a military snow vehicle powered not by tracks alone, but by a giant aircraft propeller spinning just inches behind the passengers. One wrong step could be fatal. Picture another machine that looked more like a Formula One car riding on tank tracks in a snowmobile, or a lightweight snow bike powered by an engine originally designed for chainsaws that ironically couldn't survive deep snow. These weren't prototypes dreamed up for Hollywood movies. They were real, built by serious engineers, tested in brutal conditions, and in some cases, responsible for changing the future of winter transportation forever. Some became engineering legends. Others became spectacular failures. A few nearly disappeared from history altogether. Today, we're uncovering 10 of the strangest snow machines ever created. Vehicles born from war, desperation, and fearless engineering that ignore common sense in pursuit of impossible goals. Stay with us until the very end, because our final machine transforms one of the world's most famous sports cars into a snow-conquering monster unlike anything you've ever seen. Before we begin, tell us in the comments, which one of these bizarre creations would you actually dare to drive? Now, let's travel back to one of the darkest periods in human history. Tatra V855. When war created a monster, World War II forced engineers to solve impossible problems. As German forces pushed deeper into Eastern Europe, they encountered an enemy they hadn't fully prepared for: winter. The endless snowfields and frozen wilderness of the Soviet Union swallowed conventional vehicles whole. Trucks became trapped. Tanks struggled for grip. Supply lines collapsed beneath freezing temperatures. The military needed something capable of gliding across snow without depending on roads. Tatra answered with one of the most terrifying machines ever built, the Tatra V855. At first glance, it resembles an ordinary luxury automobile. Look closer. Mounted behind a cabin sits an enormous wooden aircraft propeller capable of pulling the vehicle across frozen landscapes with frightening speed. Instead of relying entirely on driven tracks, engineers transformed the elegant Tatra chassis into what was essentially a ground-based airplane. Two skis guided the front, while a massive rear propeller provided almost all the thrust. Power came from a compact air-cooled V8 engine, developing roughly 75 horsepower, an impressive figure for the early 1940s. On frozen terrain, the V855 could approach 50 miles per hour, which felt dramatically faster when the only thing separating you from the spinning propeller was a thin metal body. Stopping, however, presented an entirely different challenge. Unlike conventional vehicles, simply releasing the throttle didn't immediately reduce momentum. That enormous propeller continued spinning, forcing engineers to install an unusual rear braking drum that dragged against the snow, while an auxiliary drive mechanism helped climb steep icy slopes. On paper, it looked brilliant. In reality, it bordered on terrifying. The exposed propeller could throw rocks, chunks of ice, or frozen debris in every direction. Maintenance in sub-zero temperatures proved extremely difficult, while the deafening noise made communication almost impossible. Ultimately, the military concluded that despite its impressive capability, the machine was simply too dangerous and too complicated for widespread service. Only prototypes survived. Today, the V855 stands as a reminder that wartime desperation often produced engineering unlike anything seen before or since. Kamov Ka-30, Siberia's flying bus without wings, leaving wartime Europe behind. Our journey continues east into frozen wilderness of the Soviet Union. Covering millions of square miles, Siberia posed an enormous transportation challenge. Entire communities became isolated for months every winter. Roads disappeared beneath deep snow, while temperatures regularly plunged far below zero. The Soviet Union didn't need recreational snowmobiles. It needed reliable transportation capable of carrying doctors, mail engineers, and emergency supplies across landscapes where conventional vehicles simply couldn't survive. The answer came from an unexpected source. Kamov, better known for designing helicopters, engineers understood propeller technology better than almost anyone else. Rather than reinventing winter transport from scratch, they adapted aviation principles into an extraordinary machine called a Ka-30 aerosled. Imagine a small passenger cabin mounted on 4 skis with an aircraft engine roaring behind it. That's exactly what they built. Powered by a radial aircraft engine producing around 260 horsepower, the Ka-30 generated tremendous thrust, allowing it to skim effortlessly across frozen rivers, open tundra, and endless snowfields at speeds exceeding 60 miles per hour. Inside, passengers enjoyed surprising comfort compared with earlier military aerosleds. The heated cabin protected occupants from Siberia's brutal climate, while aircraft-inspired suspension absorbed impacts from frozen ridges hidden beneath the snow. To Soviet engineers, appearance mattered very little. Reliability mattered. The Ka-30 quickly became one of the most effective utility snow vehicles ever produced, transporting people and cargo across regions where no roads existed. Even today, it remains one of history's most fascinating examples of aviation technology successfully crossing into ground transportation. Bolin's Diablo, the snowmobile that pulled its driver. By the late 1960s, the snowmobile industry had exploded. Every manufacturer searched desperately for the next revolutionary idea. Some improved engines. Others developed better suspension. Bolin's decided to question something much more fundamental. What if the rider wasn't sitting on the machine at all? That unusual question created the unforgettable Bolin's Diablo. Unlike every conventional snowmobile, the Diablo separated the engine from the rider. The Bolin's Diablo proved that engineers weren't afraid to challenge convention. But if you thought pulling the rider behind the machine was unusual, Canada's next invention took that concept even further. And in many ways, it became the grandfather of an entirely new category of snow vehicles. Husky 200, the farmer's snow beast. Long before sleek performance snowmobiles dominated frozen lakes, winter transportation was brutally simple. It had one purpose: keep moving. Built in Quebec during the early 1960s, the Husky 200 looked less like a recreational machine and more like something assembled from spare farm equipment. At first glance, it resembled a garden tractor dragging a wooden sled, but appearances were deceiving. Hidden beneath its crude construction was one of the most effective deep snow machines of its era. Unlike modern rubber tracks, early Husky models relied on heavy wooden cleats bolted directly onto conveyor-style belting. It sounds primitive today, yet those wooden paddles bit aggressively into soft snow, giving the machine remarkable climbing ability, where many modern snowmobiles would simply dig themselves deeper. Power came from a compact JLO two-stroke engine, producing roughly 10 horsepower. That may seem insignificant by today's standards, but paired with the aggressive track design, it delivered surprising traction across untouched powder. Comfort, however, didn't exist. The rider sat on what was essentially a plywood sled mounted on skis. There was no suspension. Every bump traveled directly through your knees and spine. Steering demanded strength, constant balance, and plenty of determination. Yet the Husky accomplished exactly what it had been built to do. Farmers, hunters, and rural workers trusted it to cross terrain where wheeled vehicles had absolutely no chance. Ironically, this odd Canadian invention would eventually inspire something far more famous. In 1965, Bolin's purchased the Husky design rights, using many of its engineering concepts while developing the Diablo. In many respects, the Husky became the missing evolutionary link between agricultural work machines and recreational snowmobiles. Today, surviving examples are incredibly rare, especially complete running machines with their original wooden track, cleats still intact. Bombardier C-18, the snow bus that connected communities. Modern snowmobiles usually carry 1 or 2 people. Joseph Armand Bombardier imagined something much bigger. During the harsh Canadian winters of the 1940s, entire villages became isolated for months. Roads disappeared beneath several feet of snow, leaving doctors, teachers, and families completely cut off from one another. Bombardier believed winter transportation shouldn't be a luxury. It should be public transportation. The answer was a remarkable Bombardier C-18. Calling a snowmobile almost feels unfair. This was essentially a winter bus riding on massive rubber tracks. Designed to transport 18 passengers, often far more, it became a lifeline for remote communities. School children rode inside every morning. Doctors used it to reach isolated patients. Mail carriers relied on it when every conventional vehicle remained buried beneath snowdrifts. Under its rounded bodywork sat Chrysler's dependable flathead six-cylinder engine, producing roughly 115 horsepower. Raw speed never mattered. Torque did. Wide tracks distributed the vehicle's considerable weight across deep snow, allowing the C-18 to float where trucks immediately became stranded. Driving one required patience. The enormous front skis demanded considerable steering effort, especially without power assistance, while the vehicle responded more like a boat than an automobile. Inside, passengers experienced constant engine noise, the smell of gasoline and damp winter clothing. Yet they stayed warm, and more importantly, they kept moving. For thousands of Canadians, the Bombardier wasn't simply transportation. It represented connection. Without it, entire communities would have remained isolated every winter. Eliason Motor Toboggan, where it all began. Every industry has its pioneer. For snowmobiles, that pioneer was Carl Eliason. In the 1920s, a simple personal problem inspired one of winter transportation's greatest breakthroughs. Unable to travel comfortably through snow because of a foot condition, Eliason refused to accept his limitations. Instead, he built his own solution. Using a wooden toboggan, a small outboard engine, bicycle chains, and remarkable determination, he created what many historians consider the world's first practical motorized snow vehicle. Compared to today's machines, the Eliason appears astonishingly primitive. The engine sat completely exposed. The endless track resembled a moving ladder built from steel cleats. Steering relied on simple skis, controlled through ropes and basic linkages. There was no suspension, no comfort, no luxury. Every vibration traveled directly through the wooden frame. Yet beneath that crude appearance lived an idea that changed transportation forever. The endless rubber and cleat track system pioneered by Eliason became the foundation for virtually every modern snowmobile produced afterward. Without this humble invention, the machines we know today might never have existed. Sometimes history's greatest innovations don't arrive looking impressive. They simply solve a problem better than anything before them. Active snow track, Sweden's secret winter weapon. Some machines become famous because of racing. Others earn legendary status through reliability. The Swedish-built active snow track belongs firmly in the second category. Many viewers unknowingly encountered it years ago while watching Stanley Kubrick's The Shining, where it carried Dick Halloran through the blizzard toward the isolated Overlook Hotel. Its movie appearance perfectly matched its real-world purpose. Survive impossible winter conditions. Powered by an air-cooled Volkswagen engine, the snow track shared many mechanical components with the humble Beetle. That meant replacement parts could often be sourced almost anywhere. An enormous advantage for operators working hundreds of miles from civilization. Its greatest engineering achievement, however, was the ingenious variator steering system. Unlike tanks that steer by slowing one track, the snow track smoothly adjusted track speeds through variable pulleys, allowing drivers to control the vehicle with an ordinary steering wheel. The result felt remarkably natural. America's answer to delivery efficiency arrived in the form of the unforgettable Divco milk truck. Unlike ordinary trucks, the Divco was designed around one simple question: how can a driver make hundreds of deliveries in a single day with the least possible effort? Engineers solved the problem brilliantly by allowing operators to drive while standing. Special controls, sliding doors, and an incredibly low-speed drivetrain enabled milkmen to step in and out repeatedly without constantly sitting down. The design perfectly matched its purpose, proving that specialized engineering often creates the most memorable machines. Finally, we arrive at perhaps the most extraordinary vehicle of them all, the legendary Gamma Goat, developed for the Vietnam War. It looked less like a truck and more like two separate vehicles permanently joined together. Its articulated center section allowed the front and rear halves to twist independently, enabling all six wheels to maintain contact with the ground over terrain that would stop almost anything else. The Gamma Goat could climb steep obstacles, cross deep mud, and even float across rivers thanks to its amphibious aluminum body. Yet despite its incredible capabilities, it became infamous among soldiers. The Detroit diesel engine sat directly behind the driver, producing deafening noise and constant vibration, while its complex mechanical systems demanded frequent maintenance. Mechanics disliked repairing it, drivers disliked operating it, but everyone respected what it could accomplish in places where ordinary trucks simply failed. Looking back at these remarkable vehicles reveals a fascinating truth about automotive history. None of them were designed to impress collectors or appear in museums. They existed because engineers faced real-world problems and refused to accept conventional solutions. Whether balancing on three wheels, using futuristic aerodynamics, prioritizing delivery efficiency, or conquering impossible terrain, every truck on this list challenged accepted engineering principles in pursuit of a single goal: getting the job done. Today, these machines stand as reminders of an era when innovation often meant taking enormous risks. Some ideas succeeded, others disappeared, but all of them pushed automotive engineering forward in ways that continue influencing commercial vehicles even now. If one of these incredible trucks deserves a place in your dream garage, let us know in the comments. And if you enjoy discovering forgotten engineering legends and the stories behind history's most remarkable machines, don't forget to subscribe to Motor Legacy. There's always another extraordinary chapter of automotive history waiting to be uncovered. Meet the Scamel Scarab. Introduced shortly after the Second World War, the Scarab had a very specific mission. Britain's railway system still depended heavily on horse-drawn carts to move freight between stations and nearby businesses. Engineers needed a mechanical replacement capable of performing exactly the same job while dramatically improving productivity. The answer was unlike anything else on British roads. Compact, rounded, and riding on three wheels, the Scarab hardly resembled a traditional truck. Yet beneath its unusual appearance was one of the smartest urban transport designs of its era. Its greatest innovation lay in the steering system. The single front wheel could rotate through an extraordinary angle, allowing the entire vehicle to turn within an incredibly small space. Busy railway depots, narrow alleyways, and crowded loading yards suddenly became much easier to navigate. Depending on specification, these machines could haul substantial loads while remaining compact enough to reach places inaccessible to conventional trucks. Drivers quickly appreciated how efficiently the Scarab moved trailers around rail terminals, reducing both time and physical effort. Comfort, however, wasn't part of the design brief. The driver sat directly above the engine, surrounded by constant heat, vibration, and mechanical noise. Long shifts could be exhausting, but businesses cared more about productivity than luxury. The Scarab delivered exactly that. Perhaps its most revolutionary feature was an automatic trailer coupling system that allowed operators to connect trailers without leaving the cab. Decades later, this still feels surprisingly advanced, proving that practical innovation doesn't always attract headlines. Thousands served across Britain for years, quietly becoming an essential part of everyday logistics, even though most people barely notice them. Our next vehicle couldn't be more different. Instead of solving practical transport problems, one visionary designer wanted to reinvent how the entire trucking industry looked. His name was Luigi Calani. Calani believed conventional trucks wasted enormous amounts of fuel because they were shaped like bricks. Nature, he argued, had already perfected aerodynamics. Birds, fish, and insects all moved efficiently because of their flowing organic forms. Why shouldn't trucks do the same? Starting during the late 1970s, he transformed heavy-duty Mercedes-Benz chassis into rolling science fiction machines that stunned everyone who saw them. Unlike ordinary trucks with flat noses and square cabins, Colani's creations featured sweeping curves, enormous wraparound windshields, and streamlined bodies that looked decades ahead of their time. The driver sat high inside what resembled an aircraft cockpit, surrounded by glass with outstanding visibility. Every surface was sculpted to reduce wind resistance, and Calani claimed these radical shapes could significantly improve fuel efficiency during long-distance highway travel. Remarkably, these weren't just artistic concepts. Fully functional prototypes proved the aerodynamic benefits were genuine. Yet despite their impressive performance, they never entered mass production. Why? Because trucking companies viewed them from a business perspective rather than an artistic one. Their elongated noses reduced available cargo space. Maintenance became more complicated. Manufacturing costs increased dramatically, and standardized box-shaped trucks simply generated more profit. Even so, Colani's extraordinary designs remain among the boldest commercial vehicle concepts ever built. They continue inspiring designers today, demonstrating how far imagination can stretch when engineering meets creativity.